Sesko would be a bit more of a gamble. I think the chances of him leaving between now and September the 1st are looking quite slim. If they do get the opportunity to sign Donnarumma, then don't completely rule it out. Well, it's been a nightmare summer for Newcastle. We are hearing stories that maybe some of his teammates are not particularly impressed with his antics so far this summer.
Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly and welcome to The Window, talkSPORT's daily video transfer update and your go-to guide for all of the biggest football moves. Coming up, we will be getting the latest on Manchester United striker pursuit, Alexander Isak, plus so much more. And joining me today is talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. So first up, let's chat about our team, Manchester United, who've decided RB Leipzig's Benjamin Sesko is their first choice striker target. How has that decision been made?
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation because I think it was a straight shootout in the end between Sesko and Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa. I'm told that Ruben Amorim at one stage was leaning more towards Watkins, bringing that Premier League experience. That's very much been the recruitment mantra this summer with Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, obviously both proven in English football. Sesko would be a bit more of a gamble, but I think Christopher Vivell, who heads the recruitment now at Manchester United alongside Jason Wilcox, has decided that Sesko probably represents better value for money. He's a bit younger than Ollie Watkins, and I don't think it'll be a dissimilar fee. Villa were asking for 60 million for Watkins, and ideally don't really want to sell. I think the fee that Leipzig at the moment are asking for Sesko is 75 million euros. United will try and navigate that down. We broke the story exclusively on talkSPORT on Wednesday afternoon that United had sent a delegation to Germany, partly, I think, to see if there's any interest from Borussia Dortmund in re-signing Jadon Sancho, but also to start informal talks with RB Leipzig about whether they can get this deal done. I think it would be dependent on player sales, the likes of Alejandro Garnacho, Sancho I've just mentioned, Antony and Tyrell Malacia. Obviously, Rashford has gone out on loan. That takes £17 million off the wage bill, which will go some way to helping finance a move for a number 9, but ideally they need some money in terms of departures as well.
You talk about some of the outgoings there. Since we last spoke, as you mentioned, Marcus Rashford is somehow now a Barcelona player, but can you give an update on anyone else?
Well, Alejandro Garnacho and Chelsea is interesting because Chelsea have strengthened out wide already this summer. They signed Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund during the Club World Cup. They're closing in on a move for Xavi Simons as well. So you may have thought that would close the door on Alejandro Garnacho getting that move to Stamford Bridge, which I think is the one he favours. He certainly wants to carry on in the Premier League. But I was told from a really good source yesterday that Paul Winstanley, one of the two sporting directors at Chelsea, still keen to sign Alejandro Garnacho. So Simons pitching up in West London doesn't necessarily end Chelsea's interest. I think it will come down to the transfer fee. We know in January, United were looking in excess of £50 million to sell Garnacho. Their position has been weakened by the very public spat that Garnacho and Ruben Amorim have had. I think Chelsea believe they can get him now for nearer £30 million.
On United transfers, the price of football's Kieran Maguire told me that from a PSR perspective, United can actually afford to buy a striker and another player, maybe a goalkeeper. Can we see them going back in for Emi Martinez or someone like Gianluigi Donnarumma, who's been linked with us this week? Or is that a bit of his agents playing games?
Yeah, I think probably when it comes to Donnarumma, although I wouldn't completely rule it out, he is obviously not signing a new contract at Paris Saint-Germain and would therefore become a very attractive option, not just for United, but maybe for Chelsea as well, who I still think need a better number 1 goalkeeper than Robert Sanchez. In terms of Emi Martinez, I've always suspected that interest has been more driven by his camp and his advisors than by Manchester United. He's on very good money at Aston Villa, 2 times World Goalkeeper of the Year, justifies that pay packet, but I don't think at the moment United are going to advance on that. We've spoken about Seny Lammers over in Belgium at Royal Antwerp being a genuine target. And I reported this week as well that if Aaron Ramsdale completes a move to Newcastle, as looks likely, don't rule out Nick Pope as fitting the profile of the type of goalkeeper that Manchester United want to bring in. Because at the moment, Andre Onana is still at the club. I think the chances of him leaving between now and September the 1st are looking quite slim at this stage. So what I think they're looking for is a number 2 goalkeeper who can come in and put pressure on Onana. Nick Pope would certainly fit that, so too would Lammers. But if they do get the opportunity to sign Donnarumma, then don't completely rule it out.
I mean, Donnarumma was not on my bingo card to be wearing a United shirt, but there you go. Going back to the Sesko deal, could this have a knock-on effect for Alexander Isak's move to Liverpool, with Newcastle being most hesitant to sell their star striker if they can't properly replace him?
Well, it's been a nightmare summer for Newcastle so far. There's no two bones about that. Yes, they've signed Anthony Elanga. Looks like Aaron Ramsdale will happen with a $4 million loan fee going to Southampton. I think that could prove to be quite a decent signing in the long run, but obviously they've missed out on a lot of targets. Dean Howson, João Pedro, to name but two. Go Ekitike was hijacked by Liverpool as well. I think they're really determined to keep hold of Alexander Isak, the ownership, manager Eddie Howe, but he is posturing for this move, isn't he, by not going on the pre-season tour with what we were told was a minor thigh issue. He's now in Spain, so he was okay to fly to Spain, but not to Singapore, training with his old club, Real Sociedad, or using their facilities anyway. They have a decent sell-on clause. If he did go for a British record fee of £150 million, then Sociedad would stand to get £9 million from the deal. And I think if that bid did come in from Liverpool, it would test Newcastle's resolve. However, my feeling on it has always been that Liverpool aren't going to make a bid to see it rejected. I think they're only going to put the money on the table once they get the nod from Newcastle that actually they are willing to sell their star striker. If he stays, it'll be really interesting to see how he's welcomed back into the dressing room, because we are hearing stories that maybe some of his teammates are not particularly impressed with his antics so far this summer.
And that's the last thing they need, is unrest in that dressing room. You call it a disaster there and mention a few names that they missed out on. Why have they failed in so many areas this summer so far?
Well, I don't think the upheaval with the sporting director has helped. Paul Mitchell was there for the first part of the summer, left at the end of June. That left Eddie Howe and Andy Howe really as de facto sporting directors. But it's not a lack of ambition. They spoke to Brian Mbeumo. He said, look, Manchester United is my preferred destination. João Pedro, I think, was always going to end up at Chelsea if they came bidding for him. And Dean Howson was only ever destined for Real Madrid. So maybe you could suggest that they could have gone after slightly more realistic targets. But I think this shows that Eddie Howe is ambitious and wants to kick on and make them regular contenders for Champions League football and even challenge for the Premier League title.
And finally, Brian Mbeumo was the transfer saga for quite a while, but now it feels like Eberechi Eze is the new one that's being drawn out with this move to Arsenal. Is there any update at all?
I'm getting mixed reports on this. I had a call yesterday that maybe Arsenal have gone a little bit cold on the idea because they see Eze as a number 10, and obviously they've got Ødegaard, their captain, and Ethan Nwaneri, I think, is going to be promised minutes in that position this season as well. So I think they'll only go for Eze if they see him as that left-sided player, and only if they sell either Leandro Trossard or Gabriel Martinelli. Eze is keen to make the move, so personal terms won't be an issue. There is, I think, some negotiating to be done by Arsenal. They don't necessarily want to pay the whole £68 million release clause, certainly not up front anyway. So I think this one is going to rumble on a while longer. Arsenal's still at the table, but interesting to see if they do advance or not.
Well, there you have it. Crookie, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, the window will be back tomorrow to keep you up to date with the latest rumours, done deals and everything in between. But in the meantime, don't forget you can also stay up to date with transfer news via Alex Crook's transfer notebook on the website talksport.com. The window is in association with our own bookie, TalkSport Bet. Download the app or head to talksportbet.com if you want to get involved. 18 plus, T's and C's apply, begambleaware.org.